What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It's Thursday, January 13th. Happy birthday. This is an emergency John Breach birthday pod. No, I'm just kidding. Happy 40th birthday to John Breach. 40. Breach is 40. It's amazing. This podcast is so old. If you're watching on YouTube, actually, this is the David Culley got fired emergency podcast. Ryan Wilson may jump in with us, but as you can see, it's me and Debo. If it wasn't weird enough that it's just me and Debo, I'm wearing a button-up shirt and I don't have my headset on because I have to do HQ immediately after this. But we're going to dive into the David Culley stuff. Debo, what's up, buddy?
What's going on? I didn't expected to connect with you this much this week, but I didn't expect you to see my face this much this week.
I didn't expect to see your face this much this week either, but it's been a delight. Is that what finals hat is that you're wearing?
1998.
Is that the Iverson? No, that's never mind. What am I talking about? That was like, the Jazz and Jordan. Yeah, what am I talking about? I was like, why would he have 98?
Just a random one. Okay. Yeah, no Qantas today on his birthday. Ryan Wilson, like you said, might be joining us. But
Qantas. By the way, I remember watching the final game of that finals in Ham's, a restaurant in High Point with my dad when Jordan hit the shot over Byron Russell. Anywho, I digress. David Culley fired by the Houston Texans. This happened. We're podcasting with Josina Anderson. That episode will be out. If it's not already out, it'll be out later. When the news broke, kind of a fun sausage making moment as Josina was informed about somebody. Like I can confirm that she had a verified source call her and tell her that it was that he was being fired while we were doing the podcast. 1 year for David Culley. I think you could actually make the argument that David Culley deserves a vote, at least like I'll vote for like coach of the year, because the Texans played hard. The Texans were competitive despite a complete lack of talent. Like I think the Texans had way less talent than even Detroit. And Detroit
there wasn't one report that said the Texans have given up on first-year head coach David Culley. Not when they were 3-13 at the end of the year. That never happened, which typically you see with franchises that are futile the Texans.
They didn't finish last in their division. Like they won 4 games. Pretty good with that.
And they were, I think we can agree, the team that we expected had the most barren roster that we expected to have the worst record in the league.
Yes, their over/under was like 3.5, I believe.
Which 3.5, 4 in some places. Just check that. Which to even meet that level of expectation, it's hard to place in a 17-game schedule and over/under at 3. So I get 4, but just rewinding, why hire him? I think that's the main question. Why hire him in the first place?
I mean, I sort of thought when they hired him that there was a chance that this was just a 1-year deal, mainly because when they hired him, the Deshaun Watson stuff, the off-field Deshaun Watson stuff had not happened, I don't believe. But Deshaun Watson had demanded a trade and knew he was out. So it was a pretty impossible job to hire for. Like, I don't think there were going to be a lot of people who were interested in coming. So that may have played a role.
I mean, he was hired at age 65, if not the oldest head coach ever hired. One of the oldest head coaches.
Yeah, I think the oldest first-time head coach ever hired.
So we knew this wasn't going to be something to lead the Texans into the next 10 years. And you've talked about bridge coaches, and you mentioned that with the Giants the other day, someone stable to get them back into a good place before you make a home run hire, hopefully, in a couple of years. I just don't get the 1-year opportunity for Culley.
So I think that it's sort of like the Joe Judge stuff, and that seems mean, but in the sense that I think that there are exterior factors at play when it comes to David Culley being fired. I don't think it is an evaluation of David Culley's work with the Texans that is getting him fired, because 1, again, they won more games than we expected. 2, Davis Mills looked good in limited duty. I mean, in limited duty as a rookie, second-round rookie, playing for what amounted to an expansion level roster with no discernible weapons outside of Brandon Cooks, really. And he looked sharp. Like David Culley got that out of him. That's
from
impressive.
An early third-round pick to someone that Ryan Wilson has said would be the number 1 quarterback taken in the 2022 NFL draft if he had just stayed another year. Now that's a byproduct of a week 2022 draft, but that kind of tells you how far Davis Mills came along in the season under Culley.
Davis Mills probably looked better than one or two of the quarterbacks. Like, I mean, like
Better season than Zach Wilson?
better season, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, maybe Justin Fields. I mean, like all things when you factor in, like when you really factor in everything. But to the exterior factors, I think what it probably involves is the interest level of another coach in that job. Now, maybe that coach is Brian Flores, which I think is entirely possible. And there are, we talked about this. There are some tricky waters to navigate with Flores because Flores wanted Deshaun Watson in Miami. Deshaun Watson was waived his no trade clause and said he would go to Miami because of the interest from Brian Flores. It turns out that he was pushing for like Chris Greer wanted Tua, Stephen Ross, like I guess the option of both maybe was on board with potentially getting Watson, but it was Flores who was pushing the agenda. The question is, if you're hiring Brian Flores in Houston, and this is a hypothetical, I'm not saying that that's definitely going to happen. Would Deshaun Watson be willing to come back into the fold for the Texans, or is he already too far gone? Because, you're not talking about a situation where, the late Bob McNair, passes and like somebody else buys the team and Deshaun Watson's like, all right, I'm in, it's his son running things. And sorry, go ahead.
No, and I would just say we have absolutely zero read on what Deshaun Watson would want to do in that scenario, right? I mean, you would think it's too far gone based on the early reporting as early as last January and then throughout the offseason when other things got involved. But it's been relatively quiet on that front, but no indication that it's just like Deshaun Watson's out for 2021, but he's interested in remaining a Texan in 2022 if they get a different coach. Like that hasn't been on our radar at all.
No, not at all. And the thought process was, or it was at least bandied about, was like, can the Texans bring in somebody for 2021 that would interest Watson enough to have him, want to play? And then, it was like, and then they hired David Culley, and the thought was, because Deshaun Watson had made it. I believe there's something leaked out there to the extent of like he was really interested in the Texans hiring a black head coach, and totally fine. Like he wanted him to interview Eric Bieniemy. And so I think that, but then, they hire Culley, but then immediately the Deshaun Watson off-field stuff happens. And so we never really had a chance to find out if Deshaun Watson would be willing to come back and play for David Culley. And now we won't ever know. I just wonder if Watson, with everything that's gone on, if he is concerned that he won't be able to, solve the legal situation, have the legal situation come to a conclusion, by the time that 2022 starts. And if he might end up having to sort of decide, if he wants to play football for the Houston Texans. And if that's the case, maybe there's a chance that he could get him, there could be a head coach involved that interests him. Or it's entirely possible that Texans are just going out and hiring Josh McDaniels. Like they got word that Bill Belichick's not going anywhere because he found Mac Jones. He thinks he can coach another 20 years. And Josh McDaniels likes the way Davis Mills looks and wants to come coach him. Josina pointed out on the shows we were sort of talking about it, that there's almost certainly a New England connection
yes,
that will be present with Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby, the preacher. So, it stands to reason that they would want to hire. I don't know, and I've just never read anything about it and don't know anything about it, if there's a good or bad or any kind of what the relationship is with Caserio and Brian Flores. It's just not, I hadn't thought about it. But when you think about how he wanted Watson and how they all worked together in New England, and Flores left on good terms and went to Miami and took some coaches with him and whatnot. You would think that there's probably a decent relationship there, right?
Yeah, and I think when you're thinking about Deshaun Watson's mindset from a football perspective, someone that's going to turn 27 at the start of next season, if he's back on the field, and just where he wants to be as a 27-year-old quarterback in his prime, someone that I know you think is a top 3 type guy that you would start your team with at the quarterback position, he would be coming back to a Texans team that we know is absent of a lot of talent. A team that even with Deshaun Watson in 2020 was 4-12, 2 of those wins coming against the 1-win Jaguars. So it's not like even if you do bring Brian Flores in, it is a rebuilding process for these Texans, and Deshaun Watson has to recognize that. Or even if they do bring in or show indications that they want to bring in someone that he wants, he could still ask to move on to be in a better situation.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is if you're this is why the Flores thing is a little tricky, right? Is like if you're going to trade Davis Mills because maybe you get a first rounder for him, like a late first rounder for him from like maybe the Steelers are willing to give up a first rounder for Davis Mills. You trade Deshaun Watson and you're getting multiple first round picks back more than likely. If everything, if he is tradable to the extent that his legal situation is cleared up, you're getting multiple first round picks back. One of them might, if it's the Panthers, it might be a top 10 pick. And,
I think at some point he'll be tradable enough to garner back 2 first-round picks. I don't know if it's going to be that massive haul, that 4 first-round picks, or even 3 that we once discussed. But I don't think 2 is out of the question at all.
Maybe it's like 3 if you include Sam Darnold as a first-round pick, right? Like or Tua as a first-round pick, right?
Some contingency, or
or like you do the wins factor, where it's if the Panthers, if the Panthers make the playoffs with Deshaun Watson, the 2023 second becomes a 2023 first or something like that.
But you're right about the interest in someone like Davis Mills for a team that's late teen or early 20s, rather than taking a Carson Strong or Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, even, who might go a little higher than that. But if you're the Saints at 18 or Pittsburgh, which should be in the low 20s, send that pick for Davis Mills instead of maybe reaching for a quarterback that you're just putting there because there's not a ton of quarterback talent in this class.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, so the problem with the rebuild is, like, let's say that Brian Flores wants to come in, in theory, he is coming in because he thinks he can talk Deshaun Watson into playing for the Texans. Well, if Deshaun Watson's playing for the Texans, it's a lot harder to rebuild because you didn't have a first round pick last year. You've used your second round pick on Davis Mills, who's looked good. So now you're just going to put Davis Mills on the bench while Watson is, playing. That seems, like it would be, it's just a precarious position to be in. Maybe Watson comes back and plays in 2022 and then you trade him. Is, what I'm saying? Like, do you want to bring does Brian Flores just want a job and he doesn't care whether it's Deshaun Watson? Because that could be the case. So I think that is kind of, it's just kind of a tricky situation to navigate. But I do think that David Culley would not have been fired if the Texans didn't have something else in, like, some other opportunity that has opened up to them as a result of exterior factors weighing in.
Right. And that's typically the case, I think, in most circumstances when you have a firing at this point in the process and at this point in the week, 3 days after Black Monday. Now, I bring up, I don't think the Eagles had anything like set up last year when they fired Doug Peterson a week after everybody else. That one was odd, but I think most of the time when a coach is fired 3 days after Black Monday, it indicates that there's something else on the back burner.
Right. I mean, the Texans took all this time to evaluate David Culley. It's like, I mean, come on, really? Like, you didn't. What was the whole point of the season?
You know what you had week 7 with.
You had week 1. I mean, come on.
You could have made that evaluation. Are you aware of how many head coaches the Texans have had as a franchise since their existence in 2002 began?
So their first one was Dom Capers.
Correct.
And then I think Gary Kubiak followed Dom Capers, right?
Correct.
Wade Phillips?
Full-time coaches. I don't want to throw interim in here.
Okay. So Bill O'Brien, let's see. So David Culley, Bill O'Brien, Dom Capers, Gary Kubiak. Is there a fifth one I'm missing?
You nailed it. It's just a little surprising to me.
They've only had 4. David Culley is the 4th coach in franchise history.
Everybody else lasted, Capers was 4 years. Kubiak was 7 or 8. O'Brien was 6 into his 7th year. So for a franchise that's made the playoffs 6 times in franchise history, dating back to 2002, that was just, it makes sense when you lay it out like that, but just a little surprised that they'll be on their 5th coach.
Well, and it's pretty crazy that Capers only got 4 years with an expansion franchise, right? And then Kubiak actually, do you know who led the NFL in passing in 2009?
I would go with one Matt Schaub.
Ding, 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 ding. Nice work, Debo. So, I mean, it's pretty,
No context clues whatsoever there.
Right. I mean, it's just Gary Kubiak had a good run with the Texans, and then we can hate Bill O'Brien all we want, but Bill O'Brien had a pretty. Oh, look, it's Ryan Wilson. Everybody, Syracuse's own. What's up, buddy?
I was making a soccer practice drop-off run, and I see these frantic messages, and glad to hear no one died. Although it is, I don't know. It's sort of weird. Why are we firing David Culley again?
I think Debo tends to agree with me. By the way, a lot of Debo love in the comments. I mean, I get that you guys like to rag on me, but somebody suggested that I'm training Debo for when I retire. How old do people think I am?
It won't be a retirement. It'll be a David Culley type situation.
Well, no, it won't be a David Culley type situation. It'll be more like a Joe Judge type situation.
Ryan, the other day I asked Will, because Joe Judge apparently, seemingly was about to be fired and went into the Giants front office and asked for more responsibility and more control. So I asked Will, when he finds out he's about to be fired, what will he go into the CBS?
Is that true? Joe Judge asked for more responsibility?
Joe Judge said he reportedly told the Giants ownership he wanted a say in who they were hiring as GM.
This feels like a Larry David situation where you see the writing on the wall. You've already ordered the pizza and the beer to be delivered to your house, and you're trying to find it out.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you guys conclude with David Culley?
I think that there is an exterior candidate on the outside that they believe they can hire, whether it's a Brian Flores or whether it's like somebody like Josh McDaniels, who has made it be known that he really likes Davis Mills. And
let me interject here and see if this reminds you of anything, and see if this sounds familiar. There's a guy named Jim Caldwell with 9-7 in back-to-back years, and old Bob came in and wanted to bring his guy in, Matt Patricia, and they held a mimosa party when Matt Patricia.
Bob Quinn. Yeah, that's right.
I can't remember his last name, but I knew his name was Bob.
Yeah. I was like, Bill O'Brien wasn't there.
Oh, right. No, the Robert first name. Yeah. They held a mimosa party to celebrate the fact that they were done dealing with Matt Patricia, the Giants, the Detroit Lions players. So I get it on the surface, but how many more games is Bill Belichick winning with that Texans team and the dysfunction surrounding it? I'll put the over-under at more wins. I was to say 1.5 would be the over-under in terms of more wins.
I mean, maybe a half.
And that's right. Exactly. I mean, so that
doesn't turn into an 8-win team.
No.
Nobody turns that into an 8-win team.
Now, look, you could argue about the Brandon Staley level of aggressiveness that David Culley has. And we saw Mike Lombardi, the former NFL executive, just rail on Staley as being extremely arrogant. I think Culley's at one extreme and Staley's at the other. So maybe you want more aggressiveness. But, I mean, that's something you sort out in the initial interview instead of circling back now. But I don't know. These guys that get one and done, save Urban Meyer. I'm trying to think of another situation where a guy was one and done. And like Steve.
Urban Meyer didn't even get one.
But that was all self-inflicted. Like Steve, what's Steve's last name? It's not Steve White.
Wilkes with the Cardinals.
Steve Wilkes. Like that was not a great situation for him.
That was a historically bad team.
And that was the Josh Rosen team, right?
Yes, that was the Josh Rosen team,
right.
Correct. Yeah.
Chip Kelly with the Niners, right?
But he had success previously. I mean, he crushed it in Philadelphia for 75% of that tenure, Debo. Does that sound right?
I'm fine with any Chip Kelly bashing because Chip Kelly backed out of a bowl game with NC State. Yeah, he was one and done with San Francisco. That's right.
Just looking at a list like Jim Tom Sula, Hugh Jackson with the Raiders, Jim Mora with the Seahawks, Cam Cameron with the Dolphins.
Oh, that Cam Cameron had a chance. That was a one-win team, and that's the season when Joey Porter stood up and basically told Cam he sucked in front of the whole team, and there was no response from Cam.
Had a real chance to hire Mike Tomlin that year, and who knows what happens with Tomlin's career if he's forced to take that Dolphins job. Obviously, Bobby Petrino. Just rolling through some of the names.
Oh yeah, Bobby. Yeah, I mean,
also self-inflicted.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of those are extenuating circumstances, right?
Petrino quit though. Like he quit.
Petrino left a note for his players and left mid-season. I mean,
got on the motorcycle, and then next thing you know, he's wearing a neck brace.
Yeah, exactly. He took the job at Arkansas, right? Oh God, because remember the Falcons are still playing football games, and he's down there doing woo pig suey at the press conference. I do have to bounce in like a minute or two, so just your thoughts, Wilson, on possible candidate, and you guys can keep this going if you want.
We'll talk candidates for a couple minutes.
Yeah, you mean like after I leave or now?
After you leave.
Okay, cool.
This is part of the plot, Will. Part of the plot.
More responsibility, Brinson.
I can't do HQ now. I have to. Demo's trying to take my job. Okay. Yeah, they're blowing me up. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to bounce.
Okay.
We'll
Thanks for
take a
watching.
break.
Smash the like button. We'll take a break. When you come back from the break, I'll magically disappear, and Debo and Wilson will talk candidates as Debo continues his Cersei Lannister style Game of Thrones takeover of the Pick Six
Shame.
podcast.
It's just
Shame.
one week. That's it.
Shame.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for
Peace.
listening.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Ryan, the main name was Brian Flores and Will's thing, and I think it makes a lot of sense where this would not have necessarily happened if Brian Flores wasn't made available. Obviously, the Texans front office connections to New England, Flores coming from New England. Is that a name that you would be like, okay, I get why we moved on from David Culley?
I think so. My only hesitation, and I think Brian Flores feels like he got a raw deal, but you guys talked about and explained to me, must have been Sunday night. I didn't know the backstory as to the Flores reported that the departure. Chris Greer and he were at odds on the quarterback situation. Flores reportedly wanted Deshaun Watson, and Chris Greer, obviously, for obvious reasons, wanted to stick with Tua. But here's the good news. If it is, in fact, a Flores type situation, your first thought is, well, is Davis Mills an upgrade over Tua? And, that's debatable. I would guess no. But Deshaun Watson's sitting right there, and maybe he's the one person that can talk to Deshaun Watson into perhaps staying. What would you put the probability of Brian Flores, assuming he gets hired, talking to Deshaun Watson and staying on with the Texans?
I think the Texans think that percentage is higher than it actually probably is. I just think we're so far gone in this situation with Deshaun and the Texans. I mean, 25% seems generous at the point that you're convincing him to stay, right?
Yeah, very generous. First of all, so you're doing probability of A and then B, and probability A is that they hire Flores, and then B is obviously that Deshaun stays. And I think that feels like 7%. Both those things happen.
And my point to Brinson, even beyond everything that's happened with Deshaun, he would be coming back to a roster when he's 27 years old in his prime, just missing a season that doesn't have much. Even with Brian Flores and some hope for the future and the third overall pick, you're not coming back to much. If you're Deshaun and you're still kind of dictating these terms of where you can potentially go, there's a lot of better football situations for him out there.
Yep, they have the 3rd pick, the 37th pick, the 68th pick, and the 80th pick, which is not terrible. But in addition to the 7% chance that Deshaun and Flores are the answer, you're not getting the 3 first-round picks you thought you were getting for Deshaun Watson and rolling with Davis Mills. You also maybe you trade Davis Mills and try to turn that to a 3rd or 2nd-round pick. I don't know.
All right, so this is something Brinson just threw out there. I didn't think it was as crazy as, if someone told me this a couple months ago. He said, what if the Steelers at pick 20 trade for Davis Mills? Is that something you automatically hang up the phone to?
You're not hanging up the phone, but the Steelers don't hate Mason Rudolph as much as everyone else does. And I think Mason Rudolph is Davis Mills 3 years ago. I mean, is there a huge difference between the two? And Breach talks about this all the time. It's one thing to crush Mac Jones, but Mac Jones is trying to win football games. Davis Mills is just winging the ball around, and no one cares if there's interceptions. He played well, but there were no implications to whether the Texans won or lost over the last month of the season. So, I mean, you can mention the Steelers, but again, so what? You get a 2nd-round pick for Davis Mills. Is that going to fix that piece of crap team in Houston that has so many problems?
No, but, an added pick and just all these things to kind of entice Deshaun Watson to be back in your situation. You got a couple picks coming in. You got a new head coach. You got some money to spend.
It
still seems unlikely.
Jack Easterby and Calvin Nair still there?
I think they're still there.
Then, yeah, I think Deshaun. Because there's also this, Debo, that I haven't even thought about. But I think the rumors and the reports were that the Texans were actively trying to make Deshaun look bad when all that stuff came out last year. I don't know the specifics or how much veracity is to it, but even if that's on any level the case, I would imagine Deshaun is willing to hold that grudge even with Brian Flores' arrival. So again, I'll put it at 7% that Flores and Deshaun return, and again, that feels incredibly high to me.
All right, so say there's not this master plan that Brian Flores is the target right now. Are there some other names that do make sense? I mean, I think it's the list of names has been pretty consistent throughout these 7 vacancies now. But last year there was rumors about Deshaun Watson, and this is bringing it back to Deshaun, but interest in bringing Eric Bieniemy in. Ultimately, they don't hire Eric Bieniemy to give him another opportunity to interview with his team after interviewing last year. A couple other names that catch your interest.
The Josh McDaniels one is interesting in that Like, is this job better than the Indy job that he turned down?
No.
And I don't know what the situation is going to be with Bill Belichick winning if he retires, and how much Steve Belichick is next in line, or whether Josh McDaniels was promised something when he sort of backed out of that Colts gig to come back to New England.
Real quick, when that Colts job was offered, was Andrew Luck still the quarterback?
That's a good question.
I believe because it was coming off of
they
Eagles
didn't have
Super Bowl in 2017, so it was 2018. Frank Reich ends up getting the job.
So
Luck had not retired at that point.
I'm pretty sure he was probably incredibly injured. So let's see. What would have
right.
been?
I think that's what it was. It was the injuries had been mounting up, but there wasn't this indication that this, potential all-time quarterback was retiring just 7 years in.
So here's what happened. So 2017, the Colts go 4-12. Jacoby Brissett makes the majority of the starts. The 2 years prior to that, they were 8-8 with Luck, and Luck played quarterback for most of that. And then 2018, Luck returns from injury. The team goes 10-6, makes the playoffs. And then the next year, 2019, I believe that's when
he's gone.
Yeah.
That's that August night when we all got the call. And I think we did one of our first ever emergency podcasts that Andrew Luck had retired.
I remember that because I was thinking about it on the
You were
drive
at a
home.
birthday party, right?
No, I wasn't. Sean was. And he's like, Can you guys wait 30 minutes until I finish my glass of wine and then take the bus home? I said, get out of here, you hipster. But yeah,
like 11 p.m. Eastern. I think the answer is clearly for McDaniels, the Colts at that time, with even a beat up Andrew Luck versus a Texans with a disgruntled and legal issue Deshaun Watson.
Right, exactly. So, and I don't know what the situation is with him being a successor to Bill Belichick and how much Steve Belichick factors into that. I would imagine, Nick Caserio takes the job because he wants to be general manager. I understand that, formerly of the Patriots. But I don't know if Josh McDaniels, not only that, he may be able to have any job that's currently available. And this is not a great job. I think David Culley exceeded everyone's expectations, obviously. But I don't know, like I said, who else is going to coach that team to more wins than what he was able to manage. So Byron Leftwich, of course, he's an option. He's an offensive guy that you mentioned, Bieniemy.
Real quick, where would you think about slotting this vacancy in to what we did the other night and kind of ranking the open jobs at this point? Since then, we've added the Giants, and since then, we've also added the Texans.
So
I'm trying to pull up your list from the other day, just so we have that.
I think I still think that Denver's might be the best job. Toss up with the ownership, so they haven't screwed that up.
All right, so your list the other day was, in terms of most desirable to least desirable, you had the Broncos, Jaguars, Dolphins, Vikings, which you had lower than everybody else, and then Bears. And then I think pretty consensus for us when Joe Judge got fired, for Brinson and I, that goes to the bottom of the list.
I was going to say, and then Texans and Giants. I think the list stands, and then add Texans, and then add Giants.
Giants at the bottom. The only caveat was, if the Giants have a real shot at Russell Wilson, but that's something else we're putting at probably like 7%.
Yeah, right. And the chances that Deshaun and Brian end up in Houston and Russ goes to New York is 0.5%. That both those things happen. Yeah, so these two, maybe the hands were forced for both the Giants and the Texans because of what else happened around the league, and they want to scramble to find one of these available head coaches. But by doing so and doing it later, they basically put themselves at the end of the line, both chronologically and in terms of attractiveness of these jobs, because those are two incredibly crappy places to have to go and try to fix things. I feel like.
Yeah, and you might have a shot if you're a candidate that wants to get these opportunities. You get the call on Monday and you get a little bit along in the process and there's an opportunity there versus Thursday. Like, you're putting yourself really behind there. And I brought up to Brinson how I was surprised, and I think we were all surprised, that the Eagles fired Doug Peterson last year about a week after everyone else. And ultimately, I still think they had some good options to hire, went like a little out there with the Nick Sirianni hiring, and he's probably in the middle of the pack of the 2021 hires. But it could definitely impact the quality of candidates you get to interview by making the decision 3 days, 4 days after everyone else.
And I wonder how much this New England connection with Caserio is going to impact the hiring. Of course, we talked about McDaniels. Gerard Mayo is interviewed for jobs, the co-defensive coordinator, I think. He might be the linebackers coach.
Linebackers coach, yep.
Okay, Matt Patricia and Joe Judge are guys who are out there and have connections to Nick Caserio. Bill O'Brien is interviewing for head coaching jobs. He's the OC at Alabama, and I've heard through the grapevine that Alabama wasn't super pumped with how he did his job. So they might be fine with him leaving. And also he has a clear-cut Patriots connection. So that could also be a name to bring back. Imagine if they brought back Bill O'Brien, who left under inauspicious circumstances and would return not so much as like the, doing the Vince McMahon pimp walk, but pretty close to that, because we made fun of Bill O'Brien. He's no longer going to be the personnel guy, but they actually went to the playoffs pretty consistently with Bill O'Brien.
I think we recognized, 4 playoff appearances in 6 full seasons, which for a franchise like that is pretty outstanding. I think we recognized pretty good, slightly above average coach, but just a poor personnel person.
Let me ask you this. How would Doug, Mr. Peterson, handle all the oversight that appears to be taking place and the dysfunction in Houston, given how things ended in Philly?
It's probably not somewhere that he would, tops of his list, just knowing that even Philadelphia, which is considered a pretty well-run organization, he didn't love everything happening with owner Jeffrey Lurie and then Howie Roseman, who's bounced his way around that organization. So I don't think he would. I think last year, I've said that last year was a little bit more mutual than we seem to think. He was fired, but I don't think he was super upset to be moving on. I don't think he'd leap at the opportunity to go to the Texans when there's all these other opportunities with a little bit more stability out there.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Debo, because I'm terrible at pronouncing. Is it Shale Kapadia?
Yeah, Shale Kapadia.
Shale Kapadia, writes for The Athletic, and he wrote a wonderful story a few weeks ago. He updated it about what NFL owners should pay attention to in terms of the hiring process, because they get it so consistently wrong, and that's probably something that Cal McNair and or Jack Easterby should read. I don't know if it'll matter, but if you have an opportunity to read it, it's very enlightening, and it just incredibly frustrating as just a normal person why guys who are incredibly successful in other walks of life, men and women, just can't figure out how to not to be basically a dumbass NFL owner. I don't know if that's going to fix itself in Houston. Houston feels like it's probably the most dysfunctional organization on this list. I mean, we talk about Shad Khan. I think Shad Khan wants to do the right thing. He just doesn't know how. I think there's so much like concern from everyone but Cal McNair and Jack Easterby about their relationship that it clouds everything else.
With that being said, and I thought this is interesting as a organization that's entering their 20th year of existence next year, the Texans have only had what next year will be their 5th full-time head coach. It's not like they cycle through head coaches every other year, every year, like an organization like the Giants have done in the past couple of years. David Culley, I think we understood that it would be a bridge coach when you hire someone at 65 that has no head coaching experience in the past in a situation where your star quarterback wants out. I just don't think we thought it would be a 1-year bridge.
No, that's right. I mean, Bill O'Brien was there 6.5 seasons. He was fired in 2020, and Romeo took over part-time. Kubiak had a great run there. And then Dom Capers was the original coach. And that actually, that is noteworthy. Also noteworthy is that Cal McNair's dad was the owner for much of that run. And then Cal sort of took over. And look, I don't know what Cal did previously. I don't know if they're in the oil business or whatever. So I don't know what his experience is with running the organization. He feels like just straight up feels less competent than Mark Davis. Like, people make fun of Mark Davis's bowl cut because his dad ran that team forever. But the Raiders, at least recently, have sort of gotten out of their own way. There was a stretch there 10 years ago or so where they were just consistently losing. But it feels like the last few years that they've been at least, I don't know. Maybe I'm overstating it. They've been something more than completely incompetent. I don't know.
Do you think that it's a team that's in a position, last year they went with the oldest head coach ever hired, that they kind of go the opposite route this year and just kind of take a swing, roll with Davis Mills and go with someone younger, unproven, like these up-and-comers like a Kellen Moore, and I guess Leftwich can fit into that category, even though he's been around a little bit as a coordinator.
My guy Brandon Staley. I mean, here's the real question for me, and the question that I don't know the answer to, but listening to Texans folks talk, that it's at the top of the list of concerns. What does Jack Easterby want to happen? Like, does he want to hire a guy who's going to threaten his power? And I would imagine he probably doesn't want to do that. I don't know his relationship with Nick Caserio. I don't know how well they get along or not get along. So I don't know what that power dynamic's like. Assuming that they all want what's best in the organization's best interest, I would imagine you would cast your net beyond the sort of New England coaching tree and try to find maybe not a Brandon Staley type, because some people are already turned off to Brandon Staley, but something a little less than that. Maybe a Kevin Stefanski year 1, not Kevin Stefanski year 2. And why not go young? Because we keep recycling through these old football coaches, and we know what's going to happen. I mean, Mike McCarthy's having sort of a resurgence, but again, if he loses, gets blown out by the 49ers, it may be Kellen Moore's job or Dan Quinn's job. And Dan Quinn actually would be a name that is actually sort of interesting to sort of go back on what I just said. A guy who has experience in an organization that had to turn things around. There's just so much dysfunction. Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know where to start with this job, because I think if you're a young coach and eager to get a job, you'll be willing to say anything, and basically shooting yourself in the foot before you get through the door, because it'll come back to blow up in your face. Whereas a veteran coach like Josh McDaniels in Indianapolis, for whatever reason, said, "No, I'm good. I have a better gig as a coordinator, where I know I have a better idea of what my future is going to look like."
I think the place to go is Jim Caldwell. I'm serious. I really truly believe that if he doesn't get one of these 7 jobs, that's some craziness to me.
9-7 in back-to-back years. I mean, he's probably older than David Culley. They may not be contemporaries. So if I'm Jim Caldwell's agent and he gets this job, I would demand a 5-year fully guaranteed contract. I think their contract's guaranteed anyway, and just so he can get paid if they decide 12 months from now to go in another direction, which feels like something they would definitely do.
They are both 66, about 6 months apart.
There you go.
David Culley's birthday on Sunday, Jim Caldwell's birthday Sunday, turning 67. Just a few days apart from our.
I don't know if that'd be a birthday present or a birthday bag of poo at your doorstep. I don't know which one.
Hey, you're hired by the Texans.
Guys out there stomping on that bag that's on fire. All right, is that it, Debo? We done?
That's it. Send us out of here.
All right. Thank you for listening to the old Pick Six podcast. As always, added bonus when Will Brinson either doesn't show up or leaves early. So we got the leave early option. And we have something else to talk about, Debo, that the Texans are now in the search for their next head coach. What'd you say? Sixth in their organization's history? Fifth in their organization's history. Unbelievable. All right. Good luck to Houston, who has the distinction of being the second worst job available, according to Ryan Wilson, ahead of only the Giants. We'll be back when, Debo? What's next?
We got the pick show coming out on Friday, Super Wildcard Weekend, and on our way out, of course, just want to wish a happy birthday to John Breach one more time. 40 for our guy.
Quantas Breach, turn the big 4-0. All right, we'll see you guys on the pick show.